Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I find it really fascinating that every year, for twice every year, we have a lot of discussion about how we could get rid of daylight savings time, and a lot of nonsense arguments, right? So, for example, there seems to be disagreement on which time zone we would go on if we got rid of daylight savings time. I got some news for you. Whichever one we end up on, the sun's going to be out whatever number of hours it's going to be out for on the day of the year for the location that you live in. That's not going to change. It would take a huge technological leap to even attempt to change that, right? And what might change is you can always renegotiate when you want to go to work, when you want to go to school, everything else, right? That's between you and your employer, you and your school, right? And the numbers on those contracts might be different depending on which time zone we decide to use, right? But at the end of the day, a task that's going to take X number of hours to do is still going to take X number of hours to do, right? So instead of working 8 to 5, it might become 9 to 6 or whatever number of combinations, but it's the same hours, the same work at the same daylight conditions with different numbers. That's it. It's really that simple. I don't get why people have been so stupefied by this that we have to waste more time than we save on daylight savings time to argue about this back and forth, right? I got some news for you too. You're free to opt out of daylight savings time, right? For example, let's say you disagree with daylight savings. There are two ways you could go about that, right? On your contract, you could just say that we're going to meet at whatever and you can even use UTC time if you want, right? That's how a lot of airlines and space agencies will work, right? The other thing you can do, if that's going to be too confusing for you, you could just say that during daylight hours we'll start work at 6 a.m. and during the standard hours we'll start at 5, right? You could just as easily write that on a contract as well, right? There's nothing stopping you from doing that, and if more and more people do that, that will become the standard, right? So opt out of it, right? But I think the real problem and the reason politicians are so worried about us getting off daylight savings time is that I think that the politicians are worried that if the people can will away daylight savings time, which we can, right? Then what else are we going to will away, right? We could will away the value of the dollar, right, and use some other instrument to barter for things that we want, right? Why not, right? And I think as soon as daylight savings time goes away, people will quickly realize how much power they have to make other stuff go away, right? The value of the dollar, unfair laws, right? We have jury nullification, right? If enough people decide that various substances should be legal, that could be willed away as well, right? If the jury's willing to nullify it every time, right? Other stupid laws, you get the idea, right? As soon as one stupid law gets willed away, right, it opens too much power, and I think politicians are very fearful of that, right? And so, actually, part of the reason I moved to Phoenix is because of this. We don't have that stupid law, but I realized that we have a lot of stupid ideologies here anyway, too, right? So we still got a long ways to go, but at least we have the good decency of getting rid of daylight savings time, right? But the rest of the world, we can still opt out of it, right? Feel free to. When I was living in Seattle, you see, I one day I was talking to a friend of mine, and my friend suggested that everything is negotiable. Good. And so I went to work, and I was negotiating. I was an adjunct professor at Washington Tech. That it's a technical university. I was negotiating the contract, and my dean was unable to bend with the pay. He had a budget he was working with. He was unable to bend with other things too, vacation time and all that. And so I decided, because my friend said everything is negotiable, I asked my dean, could we get rid of daylight savings time and to have our students come in the same time all year? And my dean had looked at me like I had three heads. He couldn't comprehend it. That's how brainwashed he was. That's all. And the reason I wanted to do that was that we were just approaching the. See, what really sucks is that I was this wasn't at WTU, but I was tutoring a kid in math, and I started with him in the winter time. It was dark out. I think I worked with him from 5 to 6 p.m. It was dark out, so I wasn't sacrificing a lot, right? There weren't gonna be many outdoor activities at that hour of the day. But then daylight savings came, and it changed the opportunity cost of working with the student. Right now, I was giving up an hour of actual good outdoor time for him, and I was like, "Gee, why can't we just pretend we didn't have daylight savings time?" It didn't work out for him. I was giving them too good of a deal for that, and so I quit working with them, and that was really upsetting. And that's what prompted me to go to WTU and attempt to negotiate away daylight savings time, but my dean completely misunderstood me. And then COVID happened anyway, so that whole semester basically went out the window anyway. So this is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.